Am I audible? Good afternoon to all. Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible? Yes, sir. All distinguished guests, Mr. Gajanan Sadekar sir, all teaching staff, and dear students, very good morning. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar. In this occasion, we would like to start the webinar from recitation of holy verses of Quran. For this, I would like to call upon Dr. Era Ahmed sir to recite few verses.
Good afternoon and assalamu alaikum to one and all. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. القارعة ما القارعة وما أدراك ما القارعة يوم يكون الناس كالفراش المبثوث وتكون الجبال كالعهن المنفوش فأما من ثقلت موازينه فهو في عيشة راضية وأما من خفت موازينه فأمه هاوية وما أدراك ما هي نار حامية صدق الله العظيم. Thank you.
Thank you, AR sir. Now I request Dr. Iqbal Sheikh sir to inaugurate the webinar. Over to you, Dr. Iqbal Sheikh sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Good afternoon.
Our guest Gajanan sir, Vice Principal Zair Khan sir, and organizing team. Of course, this topic, research methodology, that itself is something which everyone knows is essential aspect whenever we are thinking about, say, any kind of research which ultimately leads to PhD. But let me say PhD and research are two different aspects. Most of us are, participating over here are well informed about the term research methodology. See, as in my personal opinion, research methodology is not a single subject. It has got its own varieties of outcome. For me, since I have completed long back, 1994, I completed my PhD, but even in those days, we had importance, or rather lot of importance given to research methodology, which according to me brings in meaning to your efforts. What all efforts you are investing over there in your research work, it brings some kind of meaning. It brings kind of efficiency in your efforts, and top of all, it brings transparency, ethics, and ultimately it brings stability to the organization to which you belong to. Maybe as a say research scholar, you must be attached to some college, or you must be attached to some kind of a research lab, maybe some kind of organization, industrial say aspects and all. But ultimately, it brings stability over there. Of course, this statement is too wide. It may take some time for most of us to understand. But after spending almost 28, 29 years after completing PhD, I can understand what all research methodology has given to me. Now, in today's era, where we are always mad behind a kind of a productivity, those who are working with and those who are attached with the educational institute, we are aware about NBA, NET, day in and day out. We are talking about NBA, NET, or once you move towards industry, over there also certain quality parameters are fixed. Now, when we talk about productivity is something which merely a parameter, but as I said, it's not just a parameter. It speaks a lot. It speaks so loudly that all other aspects can be considered silent compared to that. We are aware about our own organization, where we are dealing with academics, or let us say industry, or nation at large. If I say, we are dependent upon effective, efficient functioning of each and every system and each and every subsystem design over there. First of all, we should have system, we should have subsystems, and we should have very honest measuring parameters, and that becomes the kind of foundation to say research methodology. Of course, the chief guest is very renowned. I went through his profile, LNT and all. He has worked at quite senior level, so obviously, he will be able to throw a lot kind of meaning. He will be able to bring a lot of meaning to our say this webinar. Now, when we talk about research methodology, obviously we feel that it is something which is merely a subject, or just in our core course we are supposed to just clear it. No, rather we are supposed to adapt it in letter and spirit. For us, it starts from data sampling. Now, at this age, at this point of time, since most of us we are having PhD, we can easily understand that data sampling itself, how important it is, or rather wrong sampling can create a disaster, and that has been visible at many places, because we fail to have proper data sampling, which is the first step. Then obviously afterwards, how you are collecting data, sampling, then data collection, then how you are presenting. बहुत सारा चीज you can hide, बहुत सारा चीज you can exaggerate. So obviously standard procedure or renowned people can help us exactly how data presentation should be taken up. Then obviously then it goes to higher authorities, or rather for us to design some kind of mechanism where data analysis takes place. If you just clear with the word data sampling, hope say our renowned speaker will be able to make us understand, then only we can understand the true meaning of the term profit. The term profit has been used like anything, but that gives us kind of materialistic approach. For me, profit is not something which is to be counted on some balance sheet here and there. It has got its own very kind of broad meaning behind it. So obviously authentic definition of profit we need to understand. Then obviously we should understand in our system occurrence of undesirable effects. What all undesirable effects are there in any system or any subsystem which you are part of? We should be able to find out occurrence of all this undesirable effects, and then only we can have any organization. Maybe it is research lab, maybe it is industry, maybe it is academic, but then organization performance measures can be true measure can be obtained only after that. And obviously based upon those outcomes we can have design and analysis of our future step, or what all experiment we are designing over here. Of course, these are all the parameters in just my kind of 5-7 minute mein, it is too dangerous to even describe. For that we require renowned speaker only. So obviously for me I feel that I should take less time and our renowned speaker, Mr. Gajanan, should spend more time with us. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Iqbal Sheikh sir, for inaugurating the session. Now I
So
request
with this words,
Dr.
I declare this webinar inaugurated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank
Now I
you.
request Dr. Nazneen Pendari, madam, from Computer Engineering Department for keynote address. Over to you, madam.
Thank you, Dabir sir. Good afternoon, our today's guest speaker,
Good
dignitaries,
afternoon.
yes, sir. Dignitaries, professors, my fellow colleagues, and research enthusiasts. I'm Dr. Nazin Pendari, and I'm privileged to get an opportunity as a keynote speaker. When we talk about research, it technically means repetitively searches for something with better results and outcomes. But often the research enthusiast loses their focus and path while doing research and loses their valuable time and energy. And that's why one should know the correct way to do the research, the best method to apply, the right way to streamline their energy and approach. I also face challenges while pursuing my doctorate, but with a systematic approach and methodology, I could save my time and strategize my research to do its conclusion. And that's why every aspect of research methodology is important and essential. Today, we are going to focus in detail on NDLI, National Digital Library of India, and how we can leverage it for the betterment of our day-to-day work and research. When we speak about NDLI, National Digital Library of India, it is a virtual repository of learning resources that is not just a repository with search or browsing facilities, but it provides a host of services for the learner community. The NDLI Club also it is a platform for conducting learning-oriented events, both online and offline, for students at an institute using contents of NDLI and experts to deliver talks or conduct sessions. As we are from a diversified country with multiple cultures and languages, NDLI is designed to hold the content of any language and provides interface support for the 10 most widely used Indian languages. It is built to perform all academic levels, including researchers and lifelong learners, all disciplines, all popular forms of access devices, and differently abled learners. Our college, MS Sabu Siddhi College of Engineering, is always ready to adopt new technological frameworks and has successfully conducted various webinars throughout the lockdown, thus enlightening our students and staff. Now it's time for me to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Gajanan Sadekar, sir. Mr. Gajanan Sadekar, sir, is a postgraduate from IIT Bombay and has been working in the field of technology since last 43 years. He's pioneer in all aspects of product, process, and technology development. He worked for an IT major company like L&T for a decade. Mr. Gajanan Sadekar, sir, will help and enlighten us with his learnings and knowledge in research methodology. Over to you, Mr. Gajanan Sadekar, sir. We welcome
Thank you. Thank
you
you.
for
Thank
our
you. Thank
session.
you. Thank you. So I'll do one thing. I'll share my presentation first, right?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Sharing is come.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Are you able
Yes,
to
sir.
see? Just hold
Yes,
on.
sir.
Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Are you able to see?
Yes, sir. Please start.
Yeah. Which one? Yeah, yeah. Hide. Yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. But I'm not able to see any one of you face as such
Yes, sir.
now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So good afternoon to all. Dr. Sheikh, Iqbal Sheikh, Dr. Jahid Khan, and all the professors and students, my dear students. It's actually I'm thankful to you for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with you. Just now, actually, I was listening to Dr. Iqbal Sheikh. The way in which he explained the research methodology, he has made my job very simple comparatively. Because the reason
Thank you,
is
sir.
he has given us the actual essence of the research in a very short 2 minutes. He has explained what exactly we should be looking for. As you rightly said, I had just to give me little. I'll take another 2 3 minutes to explain you what exactly my background in research related. So I joined actually LNT initially in research and development department for first 14 years, and after that I moved to the design engineering and manufacturing related various functions and all that. And again at the end of my career, last 10 years, I spent as a head of technology development. You can call it research and development department more or less, but we changed the name to technology development center, and I headed that for around 10 years. So really speaking, if you ask me, I spent my most of the time, like out of my 37 years, maybe you can say around 20 sorry, yeah, 22 years I spent in a research development related activities. Now, but if you ask me, am I following all these methods? What are I'm going to talk? We generally talk in a course of research methodology. Yes, to certain extent, yes, and answer can be no also. But fortunately, we used to do some systematic way, like what Professor Iqbal Sheikh sir said, that you must have clarity on what you are doing, and that we had. And he mentioned some 4 points. That's the means to achieve something, efficiency of it, transparency and stability. I think that was very clear from because these 4 factors really what he summarized, they struck me, and that was at the core of the research actually. Okay, that's one part. Second thing is I had an opportunity to teach the research methodology subject in VJTI in 2018. 17-18, I was teaching this one subject for MTech and PhD students as a part of the postgraduate course. And actually, I can tell you, when I started teaching this course, I had to learn from the scratch a little bit, because teaching is a little different type of the field. And research methodology, like what sir said, sampling methods, various other things, etc., etc. I have required to learn that little. But it was a very good thing because I was assisted by some of the professors for being the actual analytical methods, etc. Somebody was teaching. I was taking the major theory part of it. But one thing I found, like what he said, the one is to pass the course on the research methodology. And what I found, it was unfortunate, most of the students only do this course as a part of the curriculum. And even means including everybody, including, sorry to say, some of the professors also, I don't think they think that particular subject has an importance. Before even going into the actual research methodology, one more thing I want to say is, it's a very difficult to, 1 hour, 10 minutes, or maybe 1 hour, 15 minutes to cover everything about research methodology. But I'll give you some glimpses, some keywords, which will help the people to understand. And at some points, I'll stress my experience and what I feel important for as far as me is concerned. Now that's up to you to take that, but whatever I feel, what is the essence, that I'll bring out to your notice. Okay. Now, just I want to give you, before starting the lecture, I want to give one very example. Many of the students, as well as some of the things that I asked the people, I said I had an opportunity also to review some of the projects in that place, including PhD projects, and I found even a small iota of things of the research methodology was not used in any of the projects. They were, I think, it's learned as like what sir said very rightly. People learn that subject as only for passing the subject and completing the curriculum. Because another very interesting thing happened in the course, which I want to tell you right now before start on the actual my way of thinking. Giving the explanation on the research methodology discussion. First semester, that semester, we had a test at the after halfway, midway, this mid test or whatever they call it, and I set the paper. And I want to tell you, all students told me, we are not seeing this type of paper in the previous one. So many years in, we are all prepared based on that, and this is something different because theoretical part, initial midterm, we are not gone into the various examples and all that, like problem solving and all that. So there is most of theoretical. So what I did actually, I set the problems saying that I gave some statements and said, identify the variables in this, different type of the variables and specify. Or I gave some examples and said, these are the hypotheses. Based on that hypothesis, you say how you will go about designing the experiment. So this was not in the books. People had read only theory. So somebody who has not understood, if it was application, it was a tough job. So that time I realized, because though I taught that subject, at the end I told the people, don't learn the subject for learning the research methodology. How I'm able to apply for my work, that is more important. Okay, so now so with this background, let us start because we have to cover a lot of portion. So I'll start with the definition of research, which actually, if you recollect, when I gave the last lecture on product design and its evolution, at that time I had said something on the research for a few minutes. Some of the slides may be here, which will not elaborate much, but I will cover that. But that time I said research is very simple for me. Research is research. So if you really look at the definition, this I have taken from somewhere, the word research is derived from the Middle French researcher, or to go about seeking. I want to get some information. I want to seek some information. This term itself being derived from the old French term recherche, a compound word of the recherche, whatever it is, meaning search. The earliest recorded use of the term was in 1577. So now look at, even for example, I ask many people, do you do the research? So they say yes, no, thing, etc. To my knowledge, every one of us do the research, because our definition of research what says, if I have a problem, I look at whether this problem had a past solution, any solution in the past, or in the past anything happened, because I want to improve I want to solve the problem, I want to do some improvement. So I look at back and say, what was done by the people and what were obstacles in that, what were problems in that. If I come to know that, I'll do my thing better, right? So that is, for me, that's a definition of research. But even if you see the generic definition just now, it says exactly the search, the seeking, to go about seeking the information, right? Now look at some of the definitions I collected. They are not my definitions. I have taken from the literature. But because I was teaching the course, I thought of showing the slides, and we will go it very fast in these slides, because just to give you a little feel of it, I have put these definitions here. In the broadest sense of the word, the definition of the research includes any gathering of data, information, and facts of the advancement of knowledge. The keyword to be noted here is for the advancement of knowledge. And what for advancement of knowledge? That will decide a little later. Next definition, research is a process of steps used to collect and analyze information to increase our understanding of a topic or issue. It consists of 3 steps: pose a question, collect the data to answer the question, and present an answer to the question. That's what Sir said. The presentation of the data, after analyzing the data, presentation of the data is very important. How well you present the data in a format which can be used for some purpose, right? The next definition is research in more detail as a studious inquiry or examination, especially investigation or experimentation aimed at the discovery and interpretation of facts, revision of accepted theories or the laws of the light of a new facts, or practical application of such a new or revised theories of the laws. So it's like, this is the overall generic definition. So it's better to know once in a while generic definition of what the people are talking about. Some more things are here. A voyage of discovery, a journey, an attitude, an experience, a method of critical thinking, a careful critical inquiry in seeking facts or principles. Very nice. If you see some of the things what Professor Sheikh mentioned in the beginning, some of these words are very common here. In an attitude, or it's a journey, an experience, a method of critical thinking. So these are very, very important words to catch up. Seeing what is that I am trying to do. Next one, an art of scientific investigation, scientific and systematic search for pertinent information or a specific topic. Process of arriving a dependable solution to problems through the planned and systematic collection, analysis, and interpretation of data. So everywhere, if you see all these definitions, we will not go through all because it will take time, but everywhere it says that I am supposed to look for collect the information related to my first problem. Next, collecting the information, analyzing that experimentation and data. Now, once you collect the data, then will you do the experiment, will not do the experiment, all that is different. But you require the data for the solving the problem, and analysis of the data is very important. How you collect the data is another research itself. Like what sir said, samples. What samples I should do, how I should do the experiment. So design of experiments is a science in itself. We'll talk a little bit about that at the appropriate time. Okay. Maybe I read the last one. In a broad sense, everyone does research, but do not write it up. See that's what I said. Everyone up is this. Without trustworthy and tested published research available, we are dangerously lost in the experience, opinion, and hearsay. That's what happens. Like what sir said very nicely, it is not only getting more doctorate doing the research. Research has a different connotation. So actually, during my 40 years in L&T, somebody asked me at the end, why you are not doing doctorate? And that time I said, somebody also told me, no, he doesn't need a doctorate. I said, it's not like needing doctorate or doctorate. Doctorate is required for some purpose also, but during that particular thing, how you are doing your research, how you have learned that theory, how you have defined your problem. Because what is doctorate? I am learning to solve the critical problems in the process. So am I learned that process? I said in L&T when I work, I was required to do that, and that's the reason I have not gone for doctorate. It is not that doctorate, I don't want doctorate. No, it was not like that. Whereas some purpose you may require the doctorate, but finally at the end of the day, if you are able to learn the methodology, how you want to solve the problem, that's what you do in a doctorate. But in a systematic way, you learn the things to do the things. Okay, thank you. Next, we will go to the next slide now. Now, this slide, I remember I explained that lecture when I gave last time. So, evolution of the technology. If you look at the thing, whatever we do is only for one purpose, and that is to improve the welfare of the people. And if you look at this particular, man's welfare is a natural resource plus human energy multiplied by tools. So we have the natural resources, we convert into use the human energy and tools to improve the welfare of the people. So law led to the evolution of release of development and progress in the man's welfare. So if you see over a period of time, what has happened? These things, people used their intelligence, their resources they develop the tools, converting the natural resources into the products. Maybe a product. For example, somebody will say only products is everything, products, services, that is what is required to improve the welfare. And how to do that, you require the technology for that purpose. So people work on the technologies to develop the technologies in order to make the products. That's what, in short, I can say. Okay. Next slide. So basically, a science, because science, technology, and society. So if you really see, all these are interlinked. Science gives us information, knowledge which is required to develop some technology because they are basic principle science. You develop the technologies which in order to convert the scientific things through the technology to the society's usefulness, benefits. So this is a cycle that the technology is the use of application of scientific knowledge for a specific goal or the purpose. So these three actually go together. Somebody may do the basic research, somebody may do the technology development, but purpose is one. Finally, at the end of the day, we want to do it for a specific goal or the purpose, and to improve the society as such. Okay. Now, I have put some photographs. This actually, I'll go a little fast on this. Professor Dabir, you have to tell me at an appropriate time, because otherwise I'll go on talking. So you have to stop me at particular point whenever you want.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir. Please go on.
Yeah. If you look at this picture, great researchers and revolutionaries, I think many of these photos, all of you will be familiar. You know what I did when I taught this subject? I gave the context setting lecture. Just I showed them this particular thing. Each one of them, if you go through this, all these particular thing, each one of them has developed a particular area. Look at the Darwin, evolution over time from common ancestors through the process called natural selection. Look at the second, Tesla, the patrons in modern electricity, whatever developments occurred, he is the original pioneer for that. Same thing, if you take each one of them, Newton, okay, now Leonardo da Vinci. So each one of them, these are great revolutionaries and researchers who have actually opened the complete knowledge bank for all of us to work upon. This today, each one of this field, whatever we talk about, can be related to one of these people. Even if you go to this particular thing, like a Marie Curie, if you see the treatments of the neoplasmas and radioproductive isotopes, etc. So nuclear energy and so many things. So each one of these people have Einstein. Today, Einstein's theory of the energy E equal mc square. So everything is a basic thing which these people have created on which we are working upon, right? So it will be interesting to see such type of thing. What I if anyone of you wants some of the slides of this, I may be able to pass on to you. Okay. This is a picture which I showed that time also. So, for example, if you look at any development of the how things occurs, it's a very simple thing. Looks like this picture. Birds were flying. Somebody wanted to fly, so he made something out of the cardboard or the burner and all that, right, brothers? And then slowly, development occurred. But if you take for the today's development, which is today's, for example, A380s or maybe bigger planes or the maybe of supersonic jets and all that type of thing. Each of these involves so many technologies which actually have been developed by the people by doing so lot of research in the materials, research in the various modes of the operations, and so many things. So that has led to this. So research, when you do it, you must have specific purpose for which you are doing, and those all things will get merged somewhere, because you cannot work on everything. Everyone can work on a particular small problem, but those things should be there. It should add some value to it, right? So I have done one more thing. Somebody can say research methodology I'm trying to talk about, then why I'm giving this so much background of it? Because so many students are also going to attain, I thought of giving this type of thing because I want all young people to understand that they have something to contribute to the nation, something to contribute to this society at large. And these type of things, when you look at, it gives you different type of the energy level. And that's the reason I'm presenting this part of it. Okay. Then we'll get into the research methodology. Thoughts of a great researchers. One never notices what has been done. One can only see what remains to be done. I'll not explain any one of these thoughts, but I'll read it for you. An expert is a man who has made all the mistakes which can be made in a very narrow field. We have no right to assume that any physical laws exist, or if they have existed up to now, that they will continue to exist in a similar manner in the future. We need to challenge everything. I love fool's experiments. I'm always making them. All truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them. A man should look for what is and not for what he thinks should be. It's a very important thing. Okay, because like sir mentioned something very interesting. Sometimes we get the results, we don't some experiment results, while analysis we want to discard them. We say, oh, this is not serving my purpose. No, look at it, because the thing is, sometimes you say which is not favorable to you can be another discovery in itself. To myself, I'm only a child playing on the beach, while vast oceans of truth lie undiscovered. before me. So these are some of the great thoughts. So let us do one thing. Why research? If I have to classify the basic research, applied research, basic research leads to the applied research, and applied research gives us some application development. That's the technology development. And that's the purpose is what? Quality, to improve the quality of the life. What we talk about welfare, man's welfare. So this is a cycle which goes through. There will be some basic research which gets converted into applied research, application development occurs, and we do the thing. Now, many times what you say is quality of the life improvement depends upon the utility of the application. You find, oh, I have this application, I'll be very happy. Then you think, what is required for the purpose? So you think, oh, then something I require to study this. So you go backwards, forward, and all that type of movement starts. Sometimes the curiosity leads to the basic research, right? And if you really look, many of times in India, many people say funding is not sufficient. Funding will come if you always look at the last aim, that is, whatever I am doing will result into any value addition. If there is a value addition, funding will come. What happens many a time, if my research is only for publishing paper, funding will not come. Funding will come if I am adding, maybe however small value it is, but if I am adding the value to something, funding will come. And that is what I always used to tell during my 1.5 year stay in some institutes in Vijay, etc. I told them funding will come if your purpose is clear. When you give the project to the students, for example, if you don't think that you just give some project for him to write something and do, that's not okay. Give him some direction which will help somebody tomorrow, maybe however small contribution may be. But if we can put some contribution, it will help. And that's why research is all about. Here I have written there one more this slide. I don't know whether I showed you this slide in the past, but if you look at this slide, what I've done, I've studied various companies in the world globally and what they do in their research and development company as such, because that was very important to understand how the research takes place everywhere. And when I look at that part of it, some people have the product line, they have fixed product line, their research will be related to the business related research. So but different models. Some people have basic R&D. They're studying some various phenomena required for their product. Then they have product R&D, and then they have the new technology development. So each one, depending upon a company, their needs, they will have different activities taking place in the research departments, right? But after studying all that, I've drawn some 5 conclusions, which are very important when we are talking about all those great people, revolutionaries and researchers doing the thing. This is what happens really. Development of product with a futuristic technologies for given functionality, right? So development of products with a futuristic technologies for given functionality. Functionality never changes. What changes is actually the means to achieve that. That's what Sir said in the beginning. Means to achieve that functionality changes over a period of time, and we can change the means. That's what it is. Development of product based on the multifunctionality. That's for a business point of view. People like to have any product we have, it should be multifunctional. That's how today, for example, mobile, what has happened to it, Efficiency improvement of existing products, development in related systems around the products, and development in the functional supporting technologies, that is materials, basics, sciences, and engineering analysis, etc., etc. So if you really look at, most of the engineering companies do this. Now, what academics should do? That's the question will come. Research in academic will be of what type? Actually, academic also can do something similar way, except that their scope will have little more basic, little bit they may do on a basic research, etc., little bit, in order to support some industries to develop their applied research. I'm not saying education institutes should not do the applied research. They can do it. They should develop the products, because when you have the focus, maybe, but percentage, how much it should be, that can be decided by each institute. Okay. Now, so having seen this, what is our role? Functionality never changes. What changes is the means to achieve, and this leads to development and evolution continues. So evolution occurs over a period of time with the availability of the resources. Technology is one of the major resources. All of us have a role to play in the evolution. And that's the reason I talk till now for last 15, 20 minutes. Is only for that purpose. Is 20 minutes only to tell you we have the role to play. So each one of the student, whatever teachers and all of us have a role to play in development, and is a very, because functionality never changes. What changes the means to achieve. So I can contribute to changing the means. Specifically, choice of research area subject shall be carried out, which will result in a value addition. Already I said that to existing means to additional benefit on functionality, increasing standard of living in the case of science and technology, and showing right path to society in case of social and behavioral sciences. So these are the various other things. You do the research for different purposes, right? Some of the things you will do for the developing product, something on the social causes, behavioral sciences, everything. Research is in every area, it is there. Now, having said that, let us look at some of the types of the research, right? Descriptive survey or analytical survey, the fact-finding inquiry, state of affairs in exist, no control over variables, try to discover causes. That is a descriptive type of thing. Many times, MTech or something like that, they say you must conduct one seminar. Before final project, one seminar has to be done. That's more, it's like a descriptive. You are not thinking of that time. That time you are just some fact finding. You take some problem, you find out what has happened, and based on that you give something, your conclusions based on that. Analytical research, you just facts or information already available to make the critical evaluation. You have the already facts available, you do that. That's the analytical research. Applied research, finding a solution for an immediate problem or not rigorous, flexible in application of the conditions. Fundamental, what we talked some time back, concerned with the generalization and formulation of theory. Knowledge for knowledge sake. Sometimes it can be knowledge for knowledge sake, but fundamentals are very important. Fundamental research, people do it. That should lead to the applied research, which can be used in the application. Quantitative research, like what Sir talked some time back about measurements. So measured and expressed in terms of quantity. Expression of the, so it depends upon your problem. You will have different type of the research methodology. Quantitative research will come in something, somewhere it will be analytical research, sometimes it will be what we talked just now about applied research part of it. So, and conceptual, related to some abstract theory, thinker and philosophers. We may not do in our educational basic, we may not have too much conceptual thing, but definitely the quantitative, the applied research will come into the picture, right? And analytical research will come into the picture. Empirical relies on experience of or observation above in the data-based research. Yes, that's possible. Your database research is required to do something empirical type of thing. That's how the empirical correlations, some phenomena cannot be expressed in totality. So sometimes you do the empirical research, right? I'll not get too much of this. I'm trying to give you the lot of keywords because we have to finish this lecture in next at least another 45 minutes. So, okay. Now, other types, for example, one-time, cross-sectional, longitudinal, field setting versus lab, simulation research, clinical versus diagnostic studies, exploratory and formulator studies, historical studies, content analysis, correlational research, conclusion-oriented or decision-oriented research. So these are various things you can have a look at it different depending upon your problem, one can look at. Now, what is the research methodology? A science of studying how research is done scientifically. A way to systematically solve the research problem by logical adopting various steps. Methodology helps to understand not only the products of scientific inquiry, but the process itself. Aims to describe and analyze methods, throw light on their limitations and resources, clarify their prepositions and consequences relating to their potentialities to the twilight zone at the frontier of knowledge. Look at these four things. It's a very interesting thing. I want to say something here related to research methodology. Like, for example, a science of studying how research done scientifically is a research methodology. But research methodology is really something comes into existence when you have proper problem looking at it. It's a way of doing the things. Research methodology is not only doing for research purpose. For any activity which you are doing, it's a way of working on some problem. That is research methodology for me. Actually, something words if you take, the third line here says methodology helps to understand not only the products, but scientific inquiry, but the process itself. The process itself is very important, how you do it. So research methodology is a way of working on a particular problem. That is, for me, that's the research methodology is all about. Yeah. So the essence of scientific method. The characteristics of the scientific method, there's the objectivity, systematic analysis, logical interpretation of results. So finally, at the end of the day, research methodology, through what is our purpose? Purpose is to get interpretation of the results through the scientific way. So how I go by step, that determines how well I'll be able to do the research, right? So we are going to see some of the steps further. Then basic research, applied research we talk about, then general laws, scientific method, and some of the things empirical. If you see what we talk, those empirical approach, observations, questions, hypothesis, experiments, analysis, conclusion, and application. So this is some of the elements. We will discuss this in detail, each one of these elements. Okay. So if you look at the research process, so first important thing in the research process is selection and formulation of the research problem. For me, the most important, we are going to talk this in detail, but problem statement, how well you are able to formulation of the research problem is a most important step of everything. All other things will depend upon how well you are able to define your problem, how you are able to identify the problem, and what is the need for the problem. How that need arises will determine actually how intense your research going to be. So defining the problem or the selection of the problem is a very, very major step. Second step in our research process is a literature survey. What we talk about, I have a problem. I want to look at various things which have been done in the past. So I do the literature survey. I'm going to explain this step little one just now, and then we'll talk some of the detail afterwards. Why these steps, if you look at it, every activity which we do without the name research also goes through the same steps. Development of working hypothesis. And this is important. Sometimes you may develop the hypothesis, you may not develop the hypothesis. But developing hypothesis helps. Including, I want to tell you, I should do a lot of failure analysis. So actually, I used to develop the hypothesis in the beginning itself. After defining the little problem, I should develop the hypothesis. So some of the people told me, you have the habit to do the research all the time. I said, yes. Because if not, I'm not doing the hypothesis. My focus doesn't come to my work. So if you look at that now, why I'm trying to tell you, we get bogged down saying that research, when some people feel that, oh, research is something big thing. Yes, it's a big thing. But every day we are doing research of the different, in every work of what we do has the elements of the research. Research design. This is the specific thing we are going to talk about. What is research design? Because many a times, I ask this question to the people, have you done the research? So immediately they will say, no, we have never done the experimental work, etc. So we get sometimes bogged down, but some experimental work is only the research part of it. In the research design, there may be experimental work, there may be based on some data without experiments, but everything is an experiment, including, suppose if I ask the 5 people question and I collect that data and analyze, yes, I have done that experiment. So that is what is very important. One more thing I wanted to tell you, this particular thing. Actually, I wanted to tell you that I'll go previous slide. Research methodology, if I really look at it, when I started studying this, I found that basically this methodology of research has got developed because of the 2 fields, that is medical and agriculture. And till today, my observation, because I have done some study on this, my observation, these 2 fields, the research methodology is used very, very meticulously. Whereas unfortunately, in engineering, we don't use this to that perfection. Whereas in case of pharmaceutical companies, for example, or the medical research and the agricultural research, they use it very, very meticulously. Because it is the 2 things are there, important there. The variables of a different type in those type of research. It's unpredictable variables. And when you are having the unpredictable variables, to coming to the conclusion and doing the experimentation is not so easy. So they follow this research methodology very meticulously. Okay, now coming to the next, sampling strategy. So when you start research design, then sampling strategy itself, like what Professor he mentioned, sampling is a very, very big science in itself. And I want to tell you something, though I used to done a lot of 20 years from in a research and development department, but scientifically study of the how to do the sampling, etc., I had not done. Only I came to know a little more about it when I was doing this, when I was actually teaching the subject, and also little just to give little of example away from what we are talking. Actually, my son actually talked to me on this particular thing because he's in medical field, and he was doing his thesis work for his super specialty. So at that time, he told me he required to. So he said, I'm identified some statisticians to help me to do the sampling of these patients and all that. So I said, what is that? So the reason, because there are a lot of variables. And then he said, I have studied how to choose the samples because I cannot collect thousands of data. I have to collect, maybe I'll be able to collect patients in a year, because 1.5 years or maximum 1 year and 10 months or 8 months, he said, that much is available to do the data collection period. In that, how much patients I'll get? I'll not get more than 100, 200 people who require of this type, each type. And there are variables are so many. So he said, I have done a statistical study, how to do the sampling along with the statistician has helped me, because I gave him the various parameters and I told him that I want to interpret this particular data, then how many, for each type of this, how many people should I collect the data, how should I go about it? So that time, little bit, I understood what is the importance of sampling strategy and sampling, how does the people do the sampling. Now, the best another best example, if I have to tell you at this moment itself, is, these people predict the election results. Now elections are going on everywhere. So election results, imagine, based on the 2,000, whereas lakhs and lakhs of people are voting, but they collect the data of only 2 people, 6,000, 10,000 maximum of that type. And based on that, they are able to predict what is going to happen. And variables are too many, right? But they are able to predict to a certain extent. I'll not say very accurately, but within 10%, 10-15%, they are able to predict what is going to happen. So it's a great thing. So that teaches us the importance of sampling strategy and sampling design. Okay. Then actually, once you do that, then how you do the pilot. Even once sample testing will depend upon what your pilot studies you are going to do. So they are all interlinked. They are all interlinked basically. And then data collection itself is a big thing. But when you do the research design, your project, your problem and objectives will actually determine all the steps below sampling. So in a research design, most important thing actually will come is the objective setting of yours. Once you do your objective setting, automatically things will move. Sampling, what type of sampling I should do, what type of pilot plan, what type of data collection, what type of analysis I require to do, all that. The testing the hypothesis or formation of the, you may form the hypothesis already. So based on that hypothesis, how testing of the hypothesis should be done, interpretation, etc. And the preparation of the final results, like what sir said, the presentation of the complete data analysis, to actually to prove your hypothesis, or sometimes to bring out the research findings, right? The same thing I have put in this particular format, but I think we can skip this slide. Now, little bit I have put here, qualities of the good research. The purpose, objectives clearly defined in common concepts. Procedure enumerated to keep continuity. Carefully planned design leading to objective results. Completed frankness, sir talked about transparency, right? Complete frankness, flaws reported and their effect estimated. That's the transparency part of it. Adequate analysis of the data and with appropriate method of analysis. Carefully check data for validity and reliability. Conclusions confined to those justified by the data. Confidence, competence, reputation, experience, honesty. So these are the some of the things which are a quality of the good research. Automatically, sir has told in the 4 things which are very important. Actually, if you read these 7-8 points, they can be summarized by those 4 points: the means, efficiency, the transparency, and the stability. Now, let us go to the actually first point, research problem. The term problem means a question or the issue to be examined, right? Research problem refers to some difficulty, need, which a researcher experiences in the context of either theoretical or practical situation and wants to obtain a solution for the same. That's what it is. What a problem is, like for example, specifically, I don't know how the even people who are doing the doctorate, how they identify the problem. Many times what happens is because guide gives you subject, or sometimes you say I want to work in this field, so I'll choose some problem from that field. So depends upon what is the really need at that time. That can be a need. Somebody has given a problem saying that this is related to this particular part and further work is required to be done. The problem can come based on any of the situations will come for. But it's very important to understand there is a need to do something that which researcher experiences in the context of either theoretical or practical situation. So there should be a need to add the value. Something which you can't do, something which is already existing, you can't work upon it. So definitely there should be a need to use. And research problem in selection of the research problem, actually I had one article came across. If anybody interested, I can send it back. It says how to build a house. Defining the research problem is like a building the house. It's a very nice article. And I distributed that to the many doctorate students who want to do the doctorate. I said, look at this particular thing. It gives you research problem when you want to do even specifically when you want to do the doctorate, etc. That particular problem, that particular article or paper gives a lot of a way of thinking over how to identify the problem areas. Okay. Now, source of the problem can be academic experience, daily experience, exposure to field situations, reading, consultations, brainstorming, research, individual. So these are the various sources, okay, through which you will get the problem to be solved, right? So these are it can be academic experience, specifically for the people who are working, people like you who are working in academic, for teachers. They know what the people are looking for, but you can also talk to the industry, and based on you can identify some of the things. Daily experiences, because these are for the common area where you can look for, right? Criteria for selection and formulation of the problem, internal and personal. So I talk about a little bit about researchers' interest, researchers' competence, researchers' own resource, finance and time. All this type of thing will get when you take a problem for the research, specifically suppose somebody is doing doctorate or something like that, that time this will play the role, but not in the industry research. Industry research has a different connotations it comes with, so that we should talk only about general research. General research must be able to add the value. It cannot be a choice of my researcher saying that my competency is in this, so I'll do only on this. Need not be sometimes. Competency can be developed, right? The external criteria factors like research ability to the problem, importance and urgency, novelty of the problem, feasibility, facilities, usefulness, all these factors will play while selection of the problem for doing the research. Formulation of the problem. There are two ways of stating the problem: posting questions or making a declarative statement. Now, this is what I really want to tell you. It's a very, very important how well you define your problem. Problem well defined, the half solved, what people talk about, is also true in case of the research, because that gives you the direction. I'm going to show you some example. Look at these three statements I have put here. Problem statement. The first problem statement is, why is the productivity in Japan so much higher than in India? Problem statement 2. What factors were responsible for the higher labor productivity of Japan's manufacturing industries during the decade 1971 to 1980 relative to India's manufacturing industries? And problem statement 3, sorry, it is again 2 it has come. This problem statement 3. To what extent did labor productivity in 1971 to 1980 in Japan exceed that of India in respect of 15 selected manufacturing industries? What factors were responsible for the productivity differentials between the two countries by industries? Now look at these three statements. I want to tell you a little lighter side. This is what I posed one of the questions in my mid-test which I took in VJTI, okay, to the students. And I said, discuss these three statements, what you feel about. And that was the question. So people said, what am I supposed to do on this? I said, these are three statements available to you. Discuss. You know how to make a problem statement. What are the good qualities of the problem statement? Now, based on that, you discuss this. They had, many of the students had had the points which are good problem statement characteristics given in the theory. But when you have to look at this part of it, look at for example, it should be as clear as possible. Like if you compare 1 and 3, 3 is much specific. So your problem statement should be little specific, which gives the direction in which you are supposed to work. When I say productivity in Japan so much higher than India, productivity in which field? In which area? Which era? Because different eras will have different type of things. So if you look at the last statement, it says between labor productivity. It talks about labor productivity. It talks 1971 to 1980. Then it further says respect the 15 selected manufacturing industries. So it is so specifically the problem is defined. And then it also says what factors were responsible for the productivity. So look at this problem statement, now it looks very simple. But if you put your problem statement in a specific way, it gives you a lot of direction to furthermore take working on it. Because then it tells you what should I do for this, what data I should collect for this, what type of sampling I require, what type of experimentation is required. So how well your problem statement is there, that at that moment itself, it will give you the various resource requirement to certain extent. It may not give you full extent, but to certain extent, it will give you at least the areas which you require deeply to study in. And that's a defining. For me, if you ask me, that's what I was telling Professor Dabir in the beginning, saying I am going to spend more time on a problem statement and literature survey part of it. Because all other theoretical things will come for the people. Once you put these two things in proper perspective, things will move further. Okay. So steps in defining problem statement is statement of the problem in a general way first, but understanding the nature of the problem, surveying the available literature, developing ideas through the discussions, and rephrasing the research problem. So problem statement, actually, we should take some time to really formulate the problem statement. Okay. Now, next step is if you see review of literature. So review of literature, if I have to really see, we do the literature review every day. Today, literature review has become a little easier for the people. right? Because resources availability is so many literature is like what just now Madam talked about the National Library and available data and things like very easy to search through. And I'm sure when the Professor Sek, he talked about doing his doctorate, it may be very difficult to collect the data, collect any literature on the what happened in the past. Specifically, I can tell you, when 40 years back, when I was doing my MTech, I used to go to IIT and library and sit for each journal we used to take, because that time there was no computer and things like that. This was in like 80s, hardly 78, hardly any computer were there for us to use, like with me. So I used to go and sit there, and each journal will go through and find out some articles and those type of things we used to. Even in L&T, we used to do that for quite a bit of time. So literature survey used to be very tough. So it is an extensive survey of all available past studies relevant to the field of investigation. So if you look at the keywords here, the past studies, available past studies, relevant data, relevant to the field of investigation, relevant of the of a problem. So problem definition, if you are specific, your literature survey gets focused on it. I had opportunity in an educational institute to do a lot of MTech and things like that, including IITs and so many other places, to do the vivas for the students, And I used to, I done must be more than 100 or maybe more, much more MTechs and PhD 1 or 2, but MTechs and the BTechs I did a lot of things. Every time I used to talk too much on the literature survey because people will write general stories. I don't blame them. I don't blame them. Because if you are taking a specific thing study, then you think there's no point in talking in too much generic literature survey. You should say that I'm going to do some experiment. I'll find out if my problem of the project involves the experiment. In that experiment, what is that I require? How those experiments other people have carried out? What problems they faced? So you should focus on that and say my literature survey will be find out who has done those type of experiments, what problems are there, and then that is a literature survey. Because what happens otherwise, you go on explaining 20 pages generic information, which at the end you don't get out of anything out of that literature survey. So it's a very specific study is relevant to the field of investigation and are all available past studies. It gives us the knowledge about what others have found out in the related field to study and how they have done so. Once you know that, you can plan your strategy, right? So purpose of the review is to gain a background knowledge of the research topic, to identify the concepts relating to it, potential relationship between them, and to formulate research hypothesis. It helps you because actually if I collect all the studies and put together, one can do it. One can actually form the hypothesis based on that. That hypothesis formation will lead for you for doing the design of the experiments. What you want to design, that will help you in case of all the sampling, this, that, etc. will follow from there. To identify appropriate methodology, which methodology? Research design, methods of measuring concepts and techniques of analysis. To identify data sources used by other researchers. Okay. To learn how others structure their reports. So all that will happen if you do the proper literature review. I want to tell you, even today, anything which I do, because I am doing a lot of consultancy for the various industries and all that, I do my literature survey very focused way. I treat each as a research project, and I do the very, very focused literature survey. First, I write down my problem in a 1, 2, 3, and on each of these particular once I define the problem, I say which are those areas which are I require to focus. And each area of the focus, I collect some literature specific. So that helps me to do form the hypothesis, do the experimentation of different type, different not actual experiment, but depend upon that. And I'm still today also I'm guiding the people for the research, some of the institutes, institute in a sense, some of the companies. There I insist on doing the literature survey in a particular fashion. Okay. Source of literature, I don't want to get into it. Now the book, journals, like Madam talk about libraries and everything available, but whatever available, at our time it was very difficult. But today, Getting the literature is not a problem. Information, communication, because interacting with a different, networking with a different institute, different in the globally is possible today, which was not very easy at the maybe 20 years back, 25 years or 30 years back. But today, all these things have become very, very easy. So one can use that type of thing, So important considerations are: read the relevant literature, classify the topic wise. We talk about this. Read with a comprehension in relation to the problem, learning, takeaway. Every time, that's what I want to tell this for the students. If you are reading 5 articles, 5 papers related to your work, good enough. But everything, when you read the paper, make a short note. What is that paper has given you with related to for your purpose or your problem? Related to that, what is the takeaway from that paper which can be directly connected to your problem? So you should write down 5 sentences. And otherwise, reading the paper is no use. Every paper when you read, or every article you read, every information you get, make a takeaway which is connected to your problem. That is very important. Okay. Now, defining the problem and proper literature review results in a clear research objective. And that's the whole idea. What is the purpose of this particular thing? Before starting actual design of the research design, I must have objectives, what I want, research objectives. And that will come if I done a proper problem statement, I done a proper literature survey, then automatically I can write down which are those objectives I'll require for my problem to do. And based on that objective, your research design will get formulated. So just we will go through this slide, this one, this establishment of research objectives. Research objectives are the specific components of the research problem that you will be working to answer or complete in order to answer the overall research problem. The objectives refers to the question to be answered through the study. They indicate what we are trying to get from the study or the expected results outcome of the study. Research objectives should be clear and achievable. Many times, objectives when you formulate, make it little, you must know what are the limitations for achieving the thing. Because otherwise what will happen, you will give only the list at the laundry list at the end, saying that these are the areas which require further study. Should not be there. Your study must end somewhere. Your research must end somewhere. Okay, there will be open areas, because open area is a continuous process. That will be there. But that doesn't mean that we should not complete what task we are undertaken. So that's what one of the things. So what is achievable should be very clear. The objectives may be specified in the form of either statements or questions. Generally, they are written as statements using the word to, for example. That's okay, don't worry about to determine or to discover, to establish, and all that type of thing. So that you know what is the action required. So you can prepare your action plan accordingly. Even when designing the experiment is the action plan. Okay. Now, research design. So let us look at the important, having objectives have been formed. Further part is the research design. Important features of research designer: clear statement of the research problem, which already we have done. Plan that specific sources and types of the information relevant to the research problem. Strategy specifying the approach for data generation and analysis. Procedures, techniques, tools, and analysis methods. All that is a part of the research design. The time and cost and budget, that also will come. So research design facilitates proper accomplishment of various research operations, yielding maximum information with a minimal expenditure of effort, time, and money. Also helps for continuous review and evaluation. So this is a generic thing which I have written here. Research design refers to the plan, structure, and strategy of the research that blueprint will guide the research process. So if you really look at this figure, the process of empirical research, this is a generic data collection and an analysis of this particular thing, etc. is mentioned there. We will not get too much on that. Let us go to this one. The process of designing and conducting a research project. So let us look at this. This is something which I felt that is very important. It will determine what, like Sir talked about also. What was studied? That's the first question. What about what aspects of the subjects were studied, what for, was the significance of the study, introduction to the research problem, objective and justification. This is the first stage in the research design. What did prior research say? That's the literature survey. What was done, how was done, conducted, methodology. So we'll have our methodology, research sample, data collection, measurement and data analysis. So these are also, for example, automatically the sampling, I'm not going to get into the details of the sampling and some methods and all that type of thing, because this 1 hour I don't think I can cover everything. I'm just giving the keywords. Sampling is a science in itself, sampling, but for that purpose, how well you are done your first two will determine how you are able to do your sampling and all that. But problem defined, literature survey for that will determine, objective which you are setting will determine what data should be collected, and based on the data collection requirement, sample, types of the sample, sampling size, sampling pattern, everything will get defined by that. Okay. Data collection, measurement, data analysis. So that's another one. What was found? That is the results and discussion. And so what? Implications of it. What now? Conclusions and recommendations. So this is actually the complete methodology. If you answer these questions and if you correlate to this is what actually you'll get. So and actually this is applicable to our every activity, more or less. So the extent will vary, right? So let us look at a little further. So important concept in the research design are dependent and independent variables. I'm not going to define all these particular things. I'm going to only read out I written the various terms. Actually, I gave the 3 hours lectures on these variables itself, to explain each of these particular things. 2-3 hours I did a work on these 7 or 8 parameters. Important concept, dependent and independent variables, extraneous variables, something which are not even your control, they are external to the problem, right? Control, what is the control? And then effect of the controls and all that. Because this, if you really read 1 or 2 articles which are related to the medical research, you will get a lot of things on a control related things there. There are control. You require some of the when you do the sampling, etc. You require to classify those depend upon a different type of the control. Something like you might have heard just now also when this corona, during the corona period, when specifically the vaccination, they were trying to see some of the patients having corona, not having corona, having this thing, having that thing. So there are various things. All these type of parameters play a very important role there. Designing the experiments and designing of the sampling, what we want to do, all that will come into this. These terms will be very important. Then confounded relationship, what are the relations between various variables and things like that, research hypothesis, experimental and non-experimental hypothesis, testing research, experimental and control groups, different control groups you require to form based on that's as a part of the sampling and all that comes into picture. Treatments and experiment. Okay. So if you really look at this particular thing, you will get in various books, etc. You will get those definitions, etc. But it's important to understand when you are designing your own experiment, all these I require to identify, study, and that's what I did in a test which I given to the people. I gave some of the actual examples and said, now identify, now do this. So even in a teaching method, if you start doing this type of thing, then concept will get more and more clear, right? Can I take another 15 minutes, Professor Debbie?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Maybe 10-15 minutes, okay. Hypothesis testing research study, generally known as the experimental studies. So experimental research. I suddenly switch over to experimental research because many of the academia will be maybe involved into experimental research. So I had taken an example just to talk about experimental research here. Hypothesis testing research studies, generally known as the experimental studies. Because you have formed some hypothesis and now you want to do the experiments in order to do that. Experimental research involves a direct assessment of how one variable influences the another. So identifying the variables is a major work in that. Some of them will be dependent variables, some of the independent variables. then some of the extraneous variables. So how you want to do the experiment? So that is one has to really identify that. And that will also depend upon your sample. Suppose we are doing the study of different types, then sample selection will come through that part of it. But variable study of the variables is very, very important. Unfortunately, I find everywhere when we do the experiments or when I work even in a L&T, I had an opportunity to do a lot of experiments on some of the things like we had a pilot plant, in our research and development. Now, unfortunately, that doesn't exist now. My initial 10 years, I had a lot of opportunity to work in a pilot plant of various types, heat exchangers and so many related to the heat exchangers, other heat transfer, basic heat transfer like fouling studies and so many other vibration studies or prolonged vibration studies, that type of experimentation. So we had a 2-3 different type of the pilot plants, and we used to do the study on that. But identifying variables, though I was not, nobody had taught me at that time, but somehow by studying the literature, I came to understand a little bit, saying which are those parameters which I really should require to study critically, which are those that depend upon each other, which can be eliminated, which can be generalized. So that type of classification, now when I studied this subject more, I understood a little more, but at that time also we used to do that type of thing. Okay. All extraneous variables must be held constant while a single variable is manipulated. These are the various theoretical things. Really means one has to understand all this, because doing the, like what sir talked about sampling, when you do the samples, when you do this variables identification, then when you do the design of the experiments, how I am going to do it, identifying these variables and putting them in a particular group, what I'll work on that. That is itself is various detailed science. These are only keywords for you. Okay. Usually experiments meet the requirement and design of the experiments play a vital role. This is just the 3 principles of experimental design: the principle of replication, principle of randomization, and the principle of local control. So you can look at these are different principles through which you can design the experiments actually. So effective research design is a function of adequate variability, all the values of research variables. That's important. If you're doing the experiments, you must know which variables are constant or which variables are dependent on each other, how you are collecting the data, all that will play the role. Precise and accurate measurement. That's what sir talk about. Measurement is the very, very important. And you must know the accuracy of the measurement. Whether the accuracy of the measurements, we had one subject, what was this particular thing? Error analysis. Many of the people wish to do the error analysis, right? And still I think people do in an experiment, you are supposed to do the error analysis. That is the very, very important things to do. How many people will do the error analysis? I don't know. Because I had a opportunity to look at some of the PhD thesis, and error analysis was missing out of it. So that's because every experiment when you do it, instrument, for example, there's a range of the instrument what accuracy you will get, and based on that we must do something like error analysis and all that. Precise and accurate measurements, identifying and controlling the effects of confounding variables, appropriate subject selection. So all this will play in the designing your experiments. Okay, effective research design. Now because time on this one, we'll go a little bit to the essential attributes of the researchers. For the sake, just to tell you, I had a little difficulty in what to put in 1 hour. So what I decided to do that, put everything little. So that's what I attempted it. I don't know whether you'll be happy about this or no, but I decided to put, because I felt whatever little small keywords I should give it to the people, I have done it as a compilation of that type of thing. Through my 6 months course, 1 semester course, I have taken up something which I felt I should convey to you, all of you. Okay. Manifest thirst for new information. This is very important. Essential attribute of the researcher. I must feel something that there should be a thirst for the new information. I want to learn something different. I want to do something, understand, and apply that to somewhere. This feeling, if that is there, that will be the major activity of the essential attribute of the researcher. Second thing is a keen keen sense of things around. Actually, no, many times this is very important. Keenness is a quality developed through an observant attitude. Sees something more out of a common occurrence around him quickly. See, that's what happens to this particular thing. Many of the when you do the experiments, no, we say, oh, this data is out of the range. I think you will leave this reading. But sometimes that reading may have some meaning. So actually, whatever happening around, how you look at those things will determine one of that's a very important thing. Somebody will say, no, this is normal. Even if it is normal, researcher may not say take as normal. He will say, no, I want to look into it a little bit more deeply. Or something is abnormal, sometimes you say it's abnormal and we leave it. Some researchers will say, no, if it little looks abnormal, I should investigate why it is abnormal. So that is a very important characteristic or attribute of the researcher. Likes to reflect or think about the things encountered. That's what it is. I'll read out this para because I like this particular thing very much. Pause and reflect on the knowledge gained. Pause and reflect on the knowledge gained, either formally or in school or through experience. Gain insights. Insights are creative thoughts that make one nod his head and say, ah, this is something I have been looking for. An original idea takes the birth. Many times this is what it is. We never look at the things in a little different fashion, no? It depends upon if you start understanding, suddenly you'll find, oh, this is like that. And then that will give the energy of a different type. Some more ideas will take the birth. Ability to express the idea clearly. And that is this is very important. Whatever your thought process, how clearly your thought process is, will determine the research output of yours. That will give you the right direction to do the research. Okay. And systematic approach in essential situations. Research requires systematic and objective thinking to arrive at something. Logical reasoning, analytical approach, ability to break down the complex situation into manageable beats that can be focused individually is very important. Actually, how systematically you break down your work, you do the better results. Breaking at a logical weights, I want to tell you something. Whatever my learning, I should use it in my failure analysis, L&T. We had a very big problem actually. We had some very, very big problem. And then I was doing the failure analysis of that. So what I did there is, I said, every stage, because people write down in generic and we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do this, and people start parallelly. So I put a rule saying that let us write down the steps, and unless the one step is complete, the activity has been, we draw the conclusions, will not move to the second step. I can tell you what happens in that process. Every step, actually, next step, I was required to modify. Because step by step, when you do the analysis properly, that's what happens. If I'm doing the experimentation, I should not do the continuous experimentation. I would say I'll do the analysis at the end. It's the wrong thing to do. I can tell you based on my experience. If I'm doing the experiments, I will find out which are those logical breaks. I'll break that time. If I stop experimentation, I do the analysis, I draw some conclusions, and because that will help me to do the further experimentation. As with totality experiment, I finish, and at the end I realize, oh, something I would have done differently. Then that is the wastage of time. So it's very important to follow the systematic approach in that, right? Now, having said that, I have put one slide here. The problems encountered by researchers in India. Sir, you may agree with me or not, but these are some of the things which I have put based on some literature and all that. Lack of scientific training. That's what happens. No one gives the proper systematically guidance. We are sometimes, like what you said rightly, for completion of the PhD or completion of this one, we do the work of it, and we don't follow nobody is really giving the research methodology is taught must be in every college as a part of the curriculum, but purpose is not served. That happens only for the curriculum purpose. The methodology is not utilized. I have seen it myself. I'm not saying everywhere it is, but many places. Insufficient interaction. Sorry, and it's missing there. Insufficient interaction. That is a very important. Like for example, specifically, research work is going on. Review of that research work at a regular interval is very, very important. Not in once in 3 months. No. Yeah, I'll go and further say that once in maybe week or once in 15 days. Because interaction gives you different ideas from the people. Interaction from the related people. For example, you must be involved the related people. Sometimes unrelated people also can help you to suppose actually it's a very good idea. If you're doing the research on a particular area, suppose in your academic institute, you can call the professor which are not related to that. They can listen to it. They may ask some questions which may give you different type of the idea. So actually the interaction plays very, very important role. I'm talking only about one institute, but you networking with the people. That will actually, and in India, what happens is everybody likes to keep his thing. Interactions are very, according to me, I'm not saying it may be happening, but many places people like to keep the secretive, as a knowledge is a secretive. Or my experimental work, I'd not like to share with others. That type of attitude comes. If that comes, then it hampers the actually overall development. Lack of confidence, lack of code of conduct. That's where I was talking about. Saying that the transparency should be there. Like sir said, transparency is the very, very essence of the. In India, many places I find transparency is missing. Transparency with individual work, transparency with the combined work. We always not like to share. For example, recently I had opportunity to be on some forum where actually they are thinking about green hydrogen research, etc. So I said, first thing you do it in India, whatever institutes in India working on research, let compile all knowledge at one place and find out who is doing on what. Because resources so much wasted. Each institute work on something. Each research laboratory works on something. They don't share with the other laboratory. I said, how this thing will work? If you want research to take further, green hydrogen, you want to mission as a mission. If you want to take it further, please combine. Please, somebody should sit together and combine all what is happening in India. Combine that particular thing together, and then say, okay, this is the area this particular institute will work. This area, I don't want to advertise, but I want to tell you that's what I learned. I was involved initially in a few years back in China in some of the projects through L&T. And there, when I went there, I observed one thing. There are some 9 or 10 institutes, and each institute work on one particular area. Our remaining institutes supposed to help them. Each institute has they are research institutes. Each institute has a different target given. Study on this. Others are not supposed to work anything out on that, but others will be involved at regular intervals to give their inputs. Because some of the fields are like, they have synergy between the fields. So they will be allowed to do that. And that is what something I find in India we are missing. At least I have experienced quite a bit because now I am involved in some of the activities which are, different type at government level, etc. That is what it happens. Inadequate assistance. Yeah. Inadequate assistance, though people talk about, I don't agree on this because if you do the value addition, automatically assistance will come. Improper library management, but just now you people have taken action, what Madam explained about National Library and all that. So those type of things are happening. High cost of publishing. This is for the academic purpose, but don't worry, publishing is not the thing. If you do the proper research, automatically it will talk for itself. Having said that, there are some thoughts to ponder. A perfection of means and confusion of aims seems to be our main problem. Second one, it is not that I am so smart. It is just that I stay with the problem longer. Third one, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. Anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. And last one, I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious. Albert Einstein. These are some thoughts. And with that, thank you very much for your patience. And I hope I conveyed maybe little bit, as many things I might have missed, but it is in 1 hour, 1 hour, 10, 15 minutes. It is not possible to complete everything. I think I have taken more time than what I have been told. So thank you very much. Hello. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now we have a question answer session.
Okay.
So please let's start with question and answer.
Yeah. Just hold on. I'll close this part of it. Yeah. Then I can stop sharing now. Stop presenting.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So,
Yeah. Yes.
I don't have a question, but really I would like to appreciate your patience and dedication. The last quote which you gave us of Einstein, but I think in place of Einstein, if I write your name, it will be, I think, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
See, Einstein. See what actually I collected. I want to tell you. I have got this type of quotes. Every lecture when I was giving in my classroom, in a Vijay while teaching this subject, every time I used to use the different quotes, 4-5 quotes every time. Okay. Idea was to actually inspire the students. That was my purpose. And actually, it inspired me also in the process. I can tell you that.
Very correct, sir.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. See, first of all, you identify the problem. However, if you, because most important case in academic, what happens, mini project or the major project also, you have the time constraint, right? Because it is not a full-time project. It may be a part-time project, right? Because the students have to study the subject along with a project which is being carried out maybe 6 months or something like that. So first thing is the time. So you should say whether I am taking that particular project, whether what are the things involved into it. If the experiments are involved into it, the experiments is the experimental setup available with us, not available with us. That will determine, because if I have to build up the experimental setup, it will take a time, maybe 2 months or 3 months. So when you define the scope of the project, one must identify what are the major. That's the reason, what I did. I want to tell you. I can send it to you that format. I made the one format and given to the students. Many of them, some of them fill that format, because I said when you want to select the topic or the project, students should be given 8 days to prepare small things. You can discuss with various people, professors and all that. But like, what are the major objectives of my thing? 8 to 10 days should be given. What is involved into that project? Whether experimental is involved, what resources are required, whether those resources are available with us or not, and maybe what will be total cost involved, etc. Maybe a little bit of it. He may not know too much about it. But something like that, one small write-up should be prepared for every project in the first week or 10 days. In academia specifically, because what happens otherwise, because your time constraints are there and the thing doesn't move, and then suddenly you find at the end of the project, then something you write down and something you take a shortcut, you understand. So preparing the scope, I think you should insist on the people, specifically for the major project which is taken by the students. There should be in the initial itself, very clearly the problem statement, what are the objectives of it, what will be involved into this, maybe 3-4 steps. Even if somebody do the analysis required, he's going to do the FEM analysis. Because what happens afterwards, then software available, like when that software will be available, whether the capability of the software is sufficient for my project or not. That type of thinking should happen initially itself. You understand? So scope can be defined. That's the reason you do it. I'm sure you must be having that type of methodology. Otherwise, I have a format, I can send it to you also if you want. Yeah. No. Now, first thing in any research you want to do it, which is the area on which you want to do the research? That's what is important. You must. That's the reason I said how I want to build a house, right? I want to build a house. Then I have to say I'm building the house for what purpose? So I'm doing the research for what purpose? I want to build a house for my staying there. I want to make out of that house hotel. I want to make some institute. I want to make the hospital. I want to depend upon that house what for I'm building. The things will change. So research for what purpose you are doing. Then identifying the problem, research problem, which we talk about the procedure, right? Once you build a research, beginning itself is what is the purpose for which you are doing the research for, and formulating the research problem. These are the major things we should do it first. Because otherwise, if you are not there, then how will you proceed further? So that's the reason I spend more time on this particular thing. Though I think your expectation may be some other thing, but I spend more time on this only to tell you identifying research problem is a very important. Then need, whether it's a need based, for example, or somebody has suggested saying that you study on this. Actually, I can tell you, I gave us one lecture in 1 or 2 or 3 colleges, how to choose your project. How to choose your project for a R&D 1 year to 6 month project. So you know your knowledge of the subject, of various subjects which you have good knowledge, and then you say which is the areas where people are looking for some new product development or something like that. Out of that, can I take something which I can complete in 6 months? Then select the topic, do the proper literature survey. Literature survey doesn't mean literature survey is only, for example, I'll ask you the question. Suppose many of the institutes, many of the projects are continuous projects, right? They are continuity. One student has done something, second student does something like that. How many students read that particular thesis of the other project very, very carefully? My answer will be no. Because I know what used to happen. If I ask that person, that fellow had done that experiment, no, what have you seen his experiment, what he has done? Have you studied it, those results? Spend the time. If you have not studied that results and what has gone wrong there or what difficulty he has faced, how you are going to improve your setup? So that is how. See, this is not actually. If you ask me, it is not only for the research. For every activity we do, these are same steps. That's what I follow. Okay, that's what I follow. Thank you.
Yes, anyone is having question? Any participant? More?
Hello. Good evening, sir. I am Dr. Ashok Dhale. Just wanted
Yes,
to
sir.
know about the variables, independent and dependent variables when we are going for the experimental project
Yeah.
research. So
Yeah.
how to reduce that one? I have come across one procedure of pi theorem and all, but
Yeah.
somehow I feel it was much more critical, and just for the sake of doing certain thing means certain thing in the sense for getting certain results were doing, but understanding that pi theorem and all was a bit difficult.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
how
So
to
what?
yeah, how to
Yes,
reduce
sir.
that variable, that is the main purpose of that. So I
Yeah.
wanted to know any other method is available.
See, one is a method. Before that, sir, when I was teaching the subject, actually, what I do is whatever I have collected the information, I can send it to you.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yeah.
Through the Professor Dabir, because I'll send some few things to him which he can pass on to you. Just to tell you, in a more than a method, you should really define the objectives first. Your objective should be very, very, very clear, because your objective will throw some variables, right? So when objective throw the variables, then you will come to know whether can I group those variables, whether some of the variables can be, there will be different type of variables, dependent, independent, extraneous, and so many things are there. So out of that, which are those I require to compromise? Compromise, I'll not word compromise is not correct, which I can be combined, or which can be grouped together, or can I study the effect of each one separately, or can I study as a thing? That depends upon what type of objective you are looking for. So defining the objective very precisely, the pi method, all those methods is a one part of it. But many times, sir, what happens is we don't define our objective very, very clearly. Suppose if it's a 3 years project, the different things happens. If it's a 6 months, depends upon also time availability for the experimentation. Then depends upon the scope of your experimental setups. All these type of things should be done because objective setting will determine how, suppose for example, I want to tell you, because I know some of the experiments people are doing and what they do. They put up the setup and then they decide what they are going to measure.
Yeah.
Or what variables they want, and then say, oh, this cannot be done here. Before that, that's how design of experiments plays the role into. So designing of experiments, for the designing of experiments, your objective must be very, very clear. Once your objective is there, you put the variables and say, now I want to satisfy this objective, I require to do this. It may lead to saying that no variables can be compromised, or no variables can be combined. Or something will say, no, I can do this. And then again, sampling will play the role. Sampling, how to do this particular thing. I will do this experiments, this data I can do this way, this I can do this way. Then again, that's what I said. Everything is just, all these are interlinked. They are very interlinked. That's what
No,
my
because
experience.
sir, my query has been solved by you, but further
We will talk about it separately.
because
We'll talk about separately. Yeah.
no, okay, okay.
Yeah, we'll talk separately. You can also, my number is available with the Professor
Yes,
Dabir.
yes,
We can
sir.
talk about it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very
Yeah.
much. Thank you for the answer, sir.
Yes, anyone else wants to ask some question?
Okay. Can I?
Okay, so I request NBI executive member Dr. Ibrahim Sheikh sir to give vote of thanks for this webinar.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, and it is my pleasure actually, because this is my one of the mission which I want to do in a small way. Whatever I want to do it for the institutes and the students. So I'm doing it for many other few colleges like yours, but yours is a very I like it your college too much because I think this is my fourth or fifth lecture at your this thing. One of the reason being people are very sincere. But first time, for example, 2:45 we started our thing at a webinar at 2:45. Many places it doesn't happen like that, you know. So this is something which I like. For example, that shows the commitment of the students, commitment of the faculty, and commitment of the overall to the cause. So I really enjoyed, and thank you very much. I'll always be available for you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim, sir, for giving the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. So can I? You want me to leave?
Sure, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.